What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin price chart. As last night, we saw the price dip all the way down to $102.8 thousand as geopolitical tensions escalate and sending the price of oil pushing to the upside. We saw Bitcoin go to the downside. We've seen stock futures go to the downside. We're going to see the Dow down over 400 points here, at least as we head into the opening, along with the NASDAQ down, S&P, and Russell on, man, do I dare say it, just absolute perfect timing for this event to occur and for our range to continue. Now, I've been talking about this range and how you would see retail sentiment deterioration even more because we haven't seen any type of euphoria enter into the market. Typically, when you see euphoria enter, we go through these types of phases and we see still hope and optimism. The drawdown doesn't mean anything, but it's been really fascinating to watch the price move all the way up. Yet retail never entered. The sentiment never shifted to the positive side. It just stayed completely dead. Just absolutely no care in the world about Bitcoin setting a new all-time high here in May. And that what seems the most likely in this type of range is that eventually there becomes like a VIX spike or there becomes some type of narrative. I'm uncertain if the current narrative is really going to end up being it, but of course the timing of it is absolutely fascinating. It just perpetuates the idea that this is still just an ABC correction that is traversing its way through as the narratives upon narratives continue to stack themselves to create fear. Now, the very difficult thing about this is what will the structure of this actually end up looking like on whether or not we're going to actually just go straight for C leg down right here. That's typically not how these go. It actually still is quite common to just kind of hang out here for a day and then still plunge. But then, you can just kind of hang out here and then actually go for the final push down, or as we saw back over here back in 2024, I would actually call that unusual to actually go that high before finally making the move. This is usually more common. But as we saw in 2024, it still came up higher, and then it eventually went before that bull flag built, and then the entire breakout ended up happening. This, of course, was met with a giant VIX spike over here back in 2024. Will it be pertaining to the current narrative that happened overnight? Will it be pertaining to something completely different? Will it stack on top of itself? Like we said, retail just hasn't been in this. At what point does retail say, I've had enough, I can't take it anymore? That's usually what ends up happening. Everybody becomes a big giga brain. They can read the news. They could say the news is super bad. There's no way I'm going to keep staying in this. And then boom, that's when everything reverses. Either way, absolutely typical price action for what you do see after you make these aggressive moves back to the upside for Bitcoin. Absolutely typical price action for what you see after price rallies all the way back up and then starts its ABC correction from those levels. This week's kind of been like just beating the drum of the same story, which has kind of been the story for the last couple of months, looking for this thing to happen. Now we're kind of getting, what do we call it, the magical unicorn fairy dust, puppet masters pulling the puppet strings, God or simulation for mysterious events to just kind of show up right when they're supposed to keep the range alive and to keep the fear in there when this is really just an accumulation range. So lots of negative news happening in here during an accumulation schematic happening, at least the appearances of one. The fact that we are ranging in here really shouldn't be surprising to anyone. I've been intentionally putting that in the thumbnail of nearly all of my YouTube videos. And by the way, I've made over 1,000 YouTube videos. I do know what is an extremely clickable thumbnail. This is not an extremely clickable thumbnail because it's actually pretty difficult to be able to see. So anybody just browsing YouTube really can't tell what that is. But it's on nearly every single one of these things to try to show that this would be what's really kind of ahead of us at this point. Just, of course, the fascinating thing is that a narrative has arrived. So for me, of course, it's just about maintaining that bigger picture perspective of what we're doing in here. This is very typical price action to happen once we get back to these highs. And if my ideas are correct, that this is actually going to end up being the blow off top for Bitcoin, which is not consistent with the whole, millions of dollars or multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars for Bitcoin, but maybe somewhere between 120 and 135 as being the actual top for Bitcoin. That once we finish this ABC correction and things finally start shifting their way back up, this rally should start producing the rest of the crypto market to start rallying along with it. And that what we're seeing happen in here and here and here will really be like these moments right in here where we've gotten our A, B, C, and then the crypto market just rallies like crazy throughout all of this, and the dominance collapses on itself once that C leg of the correction is completed after nipping that new high. Right, so there's a reality that the C leg could wrap up fairly quickly. It's just not usually that common for it to wrap up super quickly, but I mean, there's always the chance that it could. We'll watch it and see how the market reacts to it when a rally comes off of Bitcoin. In the event that it does do exactly that, where it just kind of hovers here and then it goes for a plunge, we'll see how the altcoin market reacts in there to see if we're going to end up getting something more along the lines of this for that final plunge, or if that does mark the actual literal low and we start seeing things start to rally into that moment. That'll be the things that we watch for really next week. But, similarly to this, being like 2017 and this ABC correction being that moment where the dominance starts falling really once we get out of it. And I'll put us on an easier to see time frame. We're just not going to be able to see the dominance reaction, but just realize that the dominance reaction really starts right here once this leg is done and this rally happens after the C leg, because that is an ABC correction that happens in here. ABC, then the push, and you can't really see that very well over here when we're looking at it on TradingView. But we can get a better idea of it over here when we're looking at it on CoinTrader Pro. And it's like conceptually being in that type of environment, waiting for that to wrap up in here. Similarly to Bitcoin back in 2021. And looking at 2021 over here on CoinTrader Pro as well. A, B, C, the rally, the breakdown, and the dominance happens from there, which you can see on a bigger time frame here. That's where it actually takes place from, is once that's completed, then we go into that. And as in these models, to eventually produce that blow off top to come over here for Bitcoin. We just gotta get through this ABC first, like just kind of understanding retail sentiment and how they want things to happen very quickly. Like the most optimistic thing would just be if the thing just goes ahead and plunges for it right now, after probably chilling here for a minute and then just going for it, and then on that reaction, looking to see if the dominance starts to fall into that reaction. If it doesn't start to fall into that reaction, then it's likely something like that is still in the cards. That's still in the cards to finally get the last one. So we'll just kind of be waiting and seeing in here. But the overall big picture, of course, just stick with that same thing. The thing that we've been discussing on nearly all the thumbnails of the videos and the topics of the videos, right? The overall thesis of where the market is, right? And again, reiterating that idea that I'm not in that camp of everybody being like 250, 300, $500,000, millions of dollars for Bitcoin. I'm just not in that camp. I think we're producing kind of these final phases of Bitcoin's top, but this is another one of those corrections where retail is scared of it, right? The top is in when there's absolutely no fear of the market whatsoever during the dip. When the fall happens and retail isn't scared at all, and they're just all openly buying the dip, and they're posting emojis of shaking hands, good job, on the same team, buying the dip. That's usually when you're actually in a bear market. It's when you're in a bull market, the dips are super fearful. And so I know it sounds counterintuitive, but to see some fear narratives happening in here, frankly, it's kind of bullish. So my expectations heading into the weekend is that seems very likely at some point we're going to go take out that low. The $1 million question is, how long are we just going to chill right here before that happens? Similarly to in a moment like this, and then we're just kind of chilling here right now. The thing that we'll be watching for next week in the event that it happens throughout the weekend is what the reaction looks like coming out of here, to see if we get a real reaction and if the altcoin market follows along with it, or if there's some real hesitation with the altcoin market at the same time, to then expect like a VIX spike to come and a macro thing to happen where it's one more time and then we get our way out of here. Either way, it's very clear there's 5 waves that have happened in here. We then rallied back up to retrace. I don't have any doubt in my mind that we are already in the C leg, which of course is just one step closer to the range becoming completed. The thing we're just going to be monitoring throughout the next periods of price action is how the reaction is going to happen in here, and if we see the evidence of the marker of the low. Because the hard part in here, obviously, is that we can get the real marker of the low, or we can get the fake marker of the low. And so obviously that's going to be our challenge in here. And so that's why I keep kind of bringing it up, watching what the dominance is doing to see if there's like clear evidence happening in the dominance that the reaction is going to straight lead into the little bull flag to get us out, right? Straight lead us into the bull flag to get us out, or if it's going to be one of these things happening in here that gives us one more. So that's what we're going to pay attention to next week. We'll follow the dominance to see how the dominance reacts into a low ricochet happening. Until then, of course, we get all of our narratives that we need to keep retail uninterested in this. While it seems like an accumulation schematic, retail is nowhere to be found, and the narratives just keep telling them to stay away. But I do believe they will come back in full force as these change hands from the big boys to the little fishies. So, no big changes in the market outside of the price action of what you would expect to see in an ABC correction. The good news is we're just progressing further and further into it. And it certainly looks to me like we're deep into a C leg at this point, now looking for the final phases of that C leg to start manifesting itself. So that'll be the thing that we pay attention to next week. And of course, if you're curious why we're paying attention to this so much, when even my own personal bags are primarily altcoins, it's because throughout all of history, even recent history, last months, last years, decade plus that crypto has been around, the story is told by Bitcoin. So we'll keep our eyes peeled next week, and hopefully we get this thing to move faster than slower. But throughout the weekend, I'll also be releasing another newsletter that'll be released Sunday morning, which of course is Father's Day. 95% of my audience is dudes. So, well, of course, we all appreciate moms, and we can't do anything without our wives and our moms. Shout out to all the dads out there. It's our day. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. Keep your eyes peeled for the newsletter released there on Sunday morning, Father's Day. Till then, check out the most recent one put out there. It's got a 26-minute audio recording attached to it that I personally record. You get access to all the past ones, and of course, you get access to the one released on Sunday. There's a link in the description of all of my videos to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Otherwise, no real surprises out there, guys, and I'll catch you guys on Monday. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.